afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this edition of the CMO Talk Series. I'm Krishnan Chatterjee. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Markets and Markets.
I'm Emily Foley. I am the Marketing and Communications Leader for Cisco Capital and Cisco Refresh Brands. I'm so happy to be here. I started my career in the public relations agency world. I parlayed into working for a large publicly traded company. And then after working with a venture capital firm and their portfolio companies, I started my own agency and was able to sell that, and then was recruited to Cisco and have been here for just now turned 8 years.
I thought the way I thought I'll begin is just by presenting a little bit of the problem statement, which is at least at Markets and Markets, when we look at how things are changing for our clients, especially with the current recessionary environment, which means you need to sweat every asset, every dollar. So growth can't be bought with huge additional investments. We have to improve the way growth is driven. So from a CMO's perspective, increasingly what we are hearing is this realization of the gap between efficiency and effectiveness. And at least to us, the way it sounds is, Emily, that marketing has progressed over the last decade enormously in the efficiency paradigm through MarTech. And, today we have technology to do programmatic buying. We've got demand gen, we've got ABM tools, we've got a lot of stuff. However, increasingly we hear CMOs in B2B industries talking about the fact, one common refrain is I generate so many MQLs, but sales doesn't seem to recognize them as sales qualified opportunities. And we are at a bit of cross purpose. So there is this gap emerging between efficiency and effectiveness. And Emily, I just wanted to start by asking you, do you notice this gap? Do you have a take on it? How do you see it?
So I agree that there has historically been a gap. I think our teams have evolved what we do and how we do it across our digital platform of Cisco.com. And in terms of reimagining our virtual demand center. So that's everything that comes in through customers contacting us through chat, through contact forms, through phone calls, through whatever method. And so we have trained our virtual demand center teams in each of the different regions so that they can qualify those leads. And then it funnels through to the appropriate salespeople. So we've had to do a lot of detailed back-end work to make sure that everybody understands that if this comes to you, you have to act on it. You have to insert it into your Salesforce, instance, so that we can track it all the way through from the moment that someone contacts us to making sure that deal closes. And so it's quite a rigorous process, but we've finally got to a point where we are seeing bookings, and it's really exciting because now it's like we've coined this term smarketing, because it's like sales and marketing coming together and really doing it as one team. And I think that is the key, is when sales and marketing, because we're here to enable sales, right? That's what we do. We're here to support and enable their success. And we can't do it by ourselves. So it has to be a team effort. It's like a team sport, right? You have to rely on every person on the team to help you win. And so I think we've just seen a lot of success. Now we have a lot more work to do, but we have seen a lot of success. And it's been really exciting to be able to see how the process has evolved. And of course, we still need it. We have a long way to go.
So, Emily, logically speaking, one of the best ways to achieve this, and I love this marketing term, frequently marketing and sales in B2B industries seem to set themselves up as competing entities, but seeing them together, because at the end of the day, demand is created as a combination of the two. Not, here's my marketing demand and here's my sales demand. But obviously, the most logical way of doing it is let's bring in prospects at the top of the funnel who have a positive predisposition to do business with the organization. And I'm aware that one of the unique things you have achieved is to create predisposition through purpose, or leveraging purpose itself in the marketing value chain. And could you tell us a little bit about how you do that? Because that really caught my eye.
Well, so that has been such an exciting thing to watch Cisco I'm just celebrating 8 years at the company this month. And I watched the handover from John Chambers, who was an amazing CEO and big shoes to fill, right? Well, Chuck has filled them and then some. I mean, it's been so fun and wonderful to be part of the evolving culture at Cisco. And that's where part of the culture is it's come from the very top. They've talked about, and not just talked, they've put action into really investing in people, but also setting the tone, right? It's what are our principles? Like leave your ego at the door, bring your best self to work. But it's like a me thing for each individual, but it's also a we thing as we work together as a team. And it just resonates. And it's like this amazing, when it's like the cycle of goodness. So when somebody does something nice for you, you want to do something nice for them, and then it kind of snowballs, right? And so it's really worked beautifully to trickle through the organization because they've given us the tools. And so then it was interesting because I think during the pandemic, when we would come together as a whole company for our check-ins so that they could tell us, here's what we're going to do. Here's this new kind of what we're dealing with, from whether it's the pandemic and all these teams that are so badly affected and we can't go to the office and da da da. And so a lot of the chat was, gosh, all we talk about is the touchy-feely stuff. Where's our strategy? And so our chief people officer, Fran Katsudis, is incredible. And she brought it to life in terms of here's where our purpose and our profitability intersect. Here's why this is important, because when you do good things, your customers are attracted to you, right? And so again, it's that internal cycle of goodness, but it also goes outside of our walls. And so it's that social impact. It's all of the things we're doing to make sure we choose the right partners, that we work with the good customers, that we're representing customers we're proud of, that, again, it's just that authenticity and the ability to do the right thing. It brings us all together. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it's a beautiful answer, Emily. And so I saw that's a very interesting Venn diagram intersection, purpose and profitability. Let me ask you about the third sort of Venn diagram circle, which is the customer herself. And how do you pick purpose which resonates with customers? Because I understand there is an internal culture driving your purpose. There's a profitability equation, which if it melds, your internal culture becomes sustainable. But how do you ensure that your purpose is what your customers find resonance with?
Well, so I think it's not choosing a purpose that resonates with your customers. It's choosing a purpose that builds a healthy workplace culture. And that in turn helps people build meaningful relationships and connections. And it's like a magnet, right? It attracts. If you're doing something good and you're doing the right thing and you're being good stewards of your communities in the world, then it's going to resonate with the right customers, right? I mean, if you're a nefarious character and you're out there doing bad stuff, then people are going to be repelled from you, right? So I think it's about, us doing what we feel is right and building our own culture, and the customers are attracted to it. But also we're powering an inclusive future for everybody. That's our purpose. Is we want to take technology and give it to people who need it, who might not necessarily have it, whether it's underserved communities, whether it's areas of the world that don't have access, right? And so I think that's where it resonates, because we're trying to make sure that everybody is at a level playing field. And that's hard because it's not that way in the world. And
Yeah.
so we're just trying to do our part. And again, I think it's a beautiful, like, three bubbles coming together, right? It's that purpose, the profitability, but the customer's always in the center of everything. And that's again part of how our culture has evolved, in terms of, like, the customer's always been important. I mean, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have customers. But I think the mentality has shifted because we created a customer experience role that Maria Martinez stepped into I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. And she created this customer experience organization that it's like everything intersects. In the middle dot is the customer. Everything we do, the customer is first, it's at the center.
So, well, while you were speaking, Emily, I had this sort of idea, and the idea came because I started asking myself this question. Culture sounds very nice, as you said, very touchy-feely, very, very heart, not so much mind. And then I asked myself the question, how does then one take this touchy-feely thing and make it programmatic, rather than something that episodically happens or is serendipitous? And you said something I found very compelling, which is this idea of inclusion is obviously crucial to a world where societally we are seeing disparities only increasing, the rich and the poor, the
So
haves and
true.
the nots, and clearly one brilliant way of covering the inclusion gap is technology. Because if it's like teaching you to fish rather than giving you fish. If
Right. You got
communities,
to give them a fishing pole.
exactly, technology is the fishing pole. Now my question to you, Emily, is I was just thinking from a program perspective. For instance, your customers today serve communities of their own, right? So if it's a manufacturing or a mining company, there are towns where they're based, so on and so forth. And those communities will have the haves and the have-nots. So have you programmatically, and my question is the programmatic part, but to give you a for instance, maybe work with clients and say, look, Cisco is bringing this kind of technology inclusivity, including hardware, software, connectivity, and training. And you guys throw open your communities, create some schooling, some space, and let's together, Cisco and the client, create inclusion for the communities that you serve. So are there things like that you've been experimenting with? And how do you make this programmatic?
Absolutely. So I don't know, have you heard about our networking academy?
No, but I will. I will certainly have heard about it before we record. But it sounds great. Please go on.
Excellent. Yeah, so our networking academy is a huge undertaking where we go out and we educate and we provide education to people who might not be able to go to college, or who might not, have the means to be educated at all. And we take them in and we go through a very rigorous STEM program, and we hire them. And this is from all over the world. And it's just a really exciting program because we have made a positive impact in tens of thousands of people's lives, and I mean, actually hundreds of thousands, but our goal is 1 billion by a certain point. And I want to say that's 2030, which is 7 years from now. But I mean, we're really trying to do things like that. And in the Cisco purpose report, you will see that in terms of like making sure that women in small villages in Africa can get safely from their home to a water well to get clean water and not be raped or be attacked. And it's security cameras and it's the connectivity so that people know it's being policed and it's being monitored, right? And making sure they actually have clean water. And it's working with the different infrastructure pieces and parts so that the water is there when they arrive, right? And it's from like clean water to education to making sure that we're choosing the right partners and the way we hire. I mean, we are making huge strides in terms of working toward creating diversity amongst our own teams. I mean, this is very broad, right? And so, when we have, a job rec, we make sure that the recruiting person that is assigned to that presents a very diverse set of candidates from diverse places and everything. But also on us, it's critical that we come to the table with a diverse slate of interviewers so that collectively we all can come to the best decision and make the offer to the person who would be most well suited for that role, right? And it doesn't matter where people are in the world either, because we're all over the world. And as you and I are having this conversation, we're not in the same place, and technology is enabling it.
Absolutely. So, Emily, the feeling I get is internally you have done this incredible stuff, right? You have operationalized purpose. So, everything you're saying is authentic. You're doing incredible things. Now, as a marketer, let me ask you, from a marketer's perspective, the other side of the coin is how do you get this into your communication channels? How do you take the message of the work you're doing out there? What's your advice or insight on that?
So I would say that it's through storytelling, but it's not talking about us. It's talking about our customers and the industries that they serve, right? It's not talking about the switches and the routers and the security and this and that and the other, but it's talking about how the technology is helping to transform what they're doing for their customers, right? Because it's all about customers. It's not just our own customers, but it's their customers. And so it's how is this helping evolve, the manufacturing world, right? To your point earlier. And so it's really that storytelling element that I think is so critical and taking away from, let me tell you about how great we are and what we do and what we have, but let's talk about what's the industry, what's happening in the industry, and how are we helping to transform that with our customers for their customers.
Perfect. So, by focusing on the industry and the customer's customer, which is where the impact is being felt of the purpose of inclusion, you're creating a very, I would say, a positive disposition with the customer themselves. So, do you do
Yeah.
joint programs with customers, for instance?
Absolutely, absolutely. So and I think the most effective way to tell a story is with your customer, or we also have a brilliant, strong partner organization. And our partners are a large part of how we go to market. It's through and to them, right? And so it's not just our customers, but also our partners. And by telling that story with them or having them tell it is far more powerful than us.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that's actually, yes, absolutely. You have a direct GTM. You also have a through partner go to market. And both of them, now let's go back to the place we began from, Emily, which was demand. Now, obviously,
Yes.
your channel demand strategy, your direct to customer demand strategy are different, but they have been unified through the leverage of purpose. How do you connect? So, how do you measure the impact of purpose on demand?
So I would say that is a really interesting question, and it's very tricky. But I think that the purpose is like that red thread that goes through every single thing we do, because it's who we are and what we stand for. And so I would say that, in the storytelling, in the way that we go to market in terms of how we tell the story, that just is reflected in the metrics. And when we look at whether it's the virtual demand center or our sellers and the content that we give them to enable them to tell the story, right? Or to our partners, because we do co-market with our partners. We have huge marketing velocity programs for them. But I think it's really, it's through being consistent with our storytelling, but also then you see it when you measure, because we measure everything we do because we're overhead. Marketing and communications is overhead. So we know every minute of every day we're justifying our existence by looking at the numbers, right? And if we're not doing something right, we figure out, well, should we not do that anymore? Or should we do more of this because it's performing, right? And it's resonating. We know, we're seeing what resonates by what the numbers tell us. And that's the beautiful part about this digital world, is that your numbers tell you if you have engagement with people, whether it's customers or partners or end users or distributors or whatever, because you're looking at the programs you're putting out. And if the numbers aren't there, then you got to rethink it, right? And you need to, I think this is also the other key, is the closer we all are to the customers, that is where you really have a deeper understanding of what their pain points are, what their care abouts are, where they're trying to drive their business, and how. And if we all understand what our customers' business is as well as them, if not better, then we will be able to do well, right? Because we're just trying to be their partner and trying to help them drive their business. So
And
you
I
see it
think,
in the numbers.
yeah, and I think a brilliant point you made, Emily, is also to have that level of customer engagement and communication is a function of trust. And trust
Absolutely.
and trust would rarely be created by our naked self-interest in selling. Whereas when there is a combined purpose, obviously the environment of trust is far more powerfully created. So Emily, yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so I think it's like three things. It's innovation, right? You have to have the right technology from where we sit, right, for our customers. But then it's that trust factor, because they have to trust that what we're going to be giving them and providing is going to work. And also that we have that knowledge of their business and the industry and the environment so that we're doing good things and helping drive their business. But it's also choice, right? Because everybody, including you and me, have a million choices in every day. Like we can go to how many grocery stores or how many gas stations or how many coffee places or whatever it is. And so it's knowing that we have the right innovation and that trust, and then they choose us.
Absolutely. So Emily, my last question. So imagine now, a marketing leader anywhere in the world is listening to this session. And I think they may have learned that the typical tendency to say, let me go to market with some feature functionality of my product and push that communication out, and that's how I should generate demand. Perhaps they have learned that if you layer purpose rather than feature functionality, you have a higher probability. Now, what tomorrow when they go back to office, what are 2 or 3 things you would advise them to do to act on this realization?
So that's a nice question. And I would say that a couple of things are just look at who you work for. Are you proud of that? And think about what is the purpose and how does that resonate just with yourself, right? And then how can you build that into what you're doing every day? And I would also say when I joined Cisco, we talked about our features and functions a lot. And now it's realizing that we have a whole vocabulary of our own within our walls. And so it's stripping that away and making sure that we're talking in clear, plain terms that anyone could understand and not using that, techie jargon, but it's just layman's terms, right? Or layperson's terms. And so then I think that translates into just being able to connect with people and building those relationships. So those are just a couple of things.
Fantastic learnings, I must say. I entered this conversation knowing actually that the difference between efficiency and effectiveness is content and intelligence. And today you have added the third dimension, which is cause, which is purpose, which actually can lift the whole game from the efficiency paradigm to the effectiveness outcome. So thank you so much, Emily, and thank you from Markets and Markets, myself, and from all our listeners today, who I think would have gained immensely in this session.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Krishnan. It is always a pleasure, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.